welcome. You're very welcome to the first lesson on the Enterprise University. My name is Sharon Mulligan. Thank you so much for joining me here this morning as we kick off on Module 1 with Sales and CRM. So you're very, very welcome. So we'll go through obviously what's going to be covered in today's lesson and followed then by all the various aspects and what will be looked at, of course, as the course continues over the coming months as well. So thanks again. I can see that everybody is joining in there. So we'll kick off now straight away. I've muted everybody there so that you're obviously all excellent. So that fantastic. I can see there that you're all muted, which is brilliant. So we can kick off straight away. So if we start off here, what I'd like to do, just go back there, and just to look at the curriculum. So in terms of the curriculum, today we kick off with lesson 1, which is covering sales and CRM, followed then by services, purchasing, accounting, banking. For stock, there's 3 lessons. So you've probably all received the PDF with all the full details of how the course is going to run over the time. So there's 10 lessons to follow. So we'll keep you up to date as each lesson unfolds. We'll keep you up to date as to what we've covered and do a review of each lesson as and when we go through it. So let's look at today's lesson. So in terms of today's lesson, we'll take a look at the importance of master data. So for any system that you use and operate, it's important that you have master data and master data that means something to you and for your business. So we'll look at the importance of the master data. We will look at our customers and prospects, which are paramount, obviously, to fulfilling transactions within our sales, and of course, to record information within the CRM. We'll also look at CRM with leads, pipeline, and the dashboard. We will look at sales transaction flow, the sales dashboard, and the initial setup. So it'll just be a quick overview of the initial setup and what we would recommend that you have in place before adding your customers and suppliers and prospects. We'll also look at the advanced sales. So there are going to be some key areas that maybe you're not currently aware of, but certainly you would get huge benefit and use of within the system. And we'll also take a quick overview of the customer portal. And the customer portal really is a huge advantage to you and your business to give your customers, I suppose, a way of control and an overview of the system as you input transactions on behalf of your customer. So more about that later as we go through the lesson. Okay, so there are different types of master data in Enterprise. So first of all, we look at customers. So customers are important. Without our customers, we don't get to record and track any information. So they enable us to record and track, of course, all the sales transactions. But we'll see, obviously, after this, that they're just much more than that. We've obviously got our suppliers in terms of our purchasing and procurement. So we're required to record and track transactions within the purchasing module. Again, there's much more than that in terms of the record for your supplier. We've also got our prospects. So these are required to track the progress of leads through the CRM and the pipeline. So that's important. These are our opportunities, and you'll see that now as we go through the CRM today. We also have contacts. Contacts are an important part of the customer record because what it enables you to do is record and assign tasks and activities around different contacts that you have. Contacts are important because when you're sending out mailing information, you want to make sure that you reach the right person. You want to make sure that the right information is stored as well against that person. And also if people come and join or leave a company, that you can record the fact that they're active or not active anymore, that you're always working with the latest information. And then of course, items. So items are important, and we'll see that when we come to the stock lessons later on, but they are important because they're part of the invoicing and the purchasing process. It's how you record your stock, whether that's physical or non-physical items. So the importance of master data. So just to surmise in that regard, so you have ensured the correct recording of transactions, take sales and receive payments, record purchasing and make payments. Save time by importing your master data. So we do have a great feature within the settings module where you can use the file importer, which basically enables you to use your own Excel spreadsheet, match it up to our predefined template, and import all the important information just to save you time in putting that information. So you can import such as customers, suppliers, stock items, non-stock items, your contacts. So save yourself some time as well on inputting the information by importing it through the system. So just to give you an idea of the customer journey, so we're focusing a lot here on the customer because this is paramount to the sales journey and the CRM journey. So you can trace and track all your steps. So the customers we've confirmed, you can add the customers, you can add your prospects, track all the transactions, and more importantly, track the revenue, all the activities, and monitor everything as it goes through the system. And with CRM, your customer relationship management, track and trace the future sales leads for new and existing customers. So that's important. So even opportunities, and opportunities relate to new and existing customers. Add activities and see those notifications also in the notification center. So I'll be leading you into all of these areas as we go through all of the sections. So for sales, you can add all of your sales transactions from quote to cash, schedule the orders and deliveries, set recurring postings, and of course, run off your aged analysis to find out what your customers owe you and how old are those balances that are due to you, and of course, then run the customer statements. We also then have an overview of the customer portal where you enable your customers to manage their service calls, their orders, pay bills, and approve quotes. So these are things perhaps you don't realize that are available to you that you can link up through the system and get an overview and the visibility of everything as it happens on a day-to-day. So just simplistically, in terms of your customers, you get a full 360 view of your customer account in Enterpryze. So when you go into your customer account, you get a full 360 view, and that means you get to see the performance of the customer. So you get a little bit of a dashboard to see, well, how are sales doing? How are sales tracking? I get to see the customer balance. I can drill into that open balance. So for example, if there was open orders or open invoices, I can drill in to see that information. I can add a transaction directly from the customer tab within Enterpryze. You get to store all the contacts and of course, record all your customer activities. So that tile, that customer tile and your prospect tile within Enterpryze contains and holds so much information that you don't have to move around the system too much, that you can be in one place and actually see an overview of the account and the activity and understand how everything is affected through the system. So just to give you an idea of the workflow in terms of your customer. So this is the customer tile that I've mentioned to you. And as you can see that when you're in the customer tile, you get to see an overview of the account balance. You get to see, well, overdue invoice amount, your future commitment. You have a list of all the different transaction types, and you can see there that there's a total against each of the transaction types. So I can see there that there's one lead in against that particular customer. They've got 6 quotes, they've got 2 orders. So I can simply click into any of those tiles and it will take me to those 6 quotes or take me to a list of those 2 orders. And then I can drill in further to get further information. I can also specify this particular customer as a favorite. So at all times I get to get full visibility. That 360 view is so important with your customers. And of course, last and not least, of course, is all the actions that you can take against your customer. So in terms of actions, as you can see there, I can create an activity, a lead, a service call, quotation, an order, delivery, invoice. I can reconcile the balance. So that's something down the road in terms of accounting, and particularly on the accounting side, which is where you're doing a reconciliation. So that's something we will talk about further down the line in another lesson about reconciling accounts. And that really is, you're matching your invoices to your payments particularly where you have an account that would have maybe one invoice and multiple payments have been received, which often quite happens. Somebody will put it, a payment off something, and then they might follow that through with another 2 or 3 payments. Again, other actions there, as you can see, are the customer statement. So again, through the customer tile, I can access the customer statement, send it off to the customer straight away to the primary contact, and they will receive it there within a few seconds or within a minute on the same time, on the same day. So there's a lot of the importance to note about the customer tile is that so much of your activity can happen within the tile itself. You don't have to venture off into other areas of the platform to find out the information relating to that customer. So I just wanted to show you here, just in comparison. So obviously a prospect record and a customer record, pretty much the same thing. You're giving it a code, you're giving it a name, you're specifying whether or not it belongs to a specific group. And the only difference here is that when you come into selecting a prospect is that, of course, it's got a different company type. So your prospects are your leads. I mean, generally this is a customer has phoned in and said, look, I'm interested in getting training, like so from our point of view, from a service perspective, or we're looking at getting Enterpryze and we'd like to set up a meeting and perhaps get a demonstration and bring various people into that, and maybe we'll follow up and get a quotation with you. So this is where you add your prospect, add all the information, the relevant contacts, and the company type then is tracked for you there as a prospect type. In addition to that, I've mentioned already, so when you go to select an action on a prospect, you'll see that the list is certainly quite a lot smaller than an actual customer. So what we can do here is we can create an activity against a prospect. We can create a new lead. So your leads are your opportunity. So the opportunity is you want to buy Enterpryze or you want to get more training. You can create a quote and create an order for your prospect. So that's the limitation in terms of transaction. However, the prospect goes ahead of the quote and order, and suddenly you're able to convert them, which is where the company type comes in, and you can convert them then to an actual customer where you can follow through, of course, with delivery, services, all of the other aspects follow through to invoice and payment. So it's quite seamless within the system. So just to mention here, before adding any customers, suppliers or items, so you need to set up the following in the module settings. So this is just a little bit of what we would suggest that you do before setting up your customers. So there's an option there in the customers and suppliers, and I'll show you that on the next screen, where you can auto-create the customer code or auto-create the supplier code. Now, I do have a mention here of item groups and categories, price list, warehouses. There are things that will follow, and we will see those as we go through the rest of the lesson. But I'm just giving a little bit of an introduction as to what is to come down the road, because everything that you set up now will be needed for the purpose of all of your sales transactions. So the bigger picture will grow from there. So what is the auto-create customer code? So very simply, it's a way of, you can see here, so when you click on your settings button, which is up here on the top of your screen, and then you have an option here then for module settings, and then you come into sales and CRM. We have a tick box here to auto-create custom code. And what that means is that when you're defining a customer or a prospect, you can allow the system, if this box is ticked, you can allow the system to automatically generate a code. And that's usually a 6-digit code where it consists of the first 3 letters of the company name and 3 digits to follow. So you can let it automatically do it for you, or you can define those codes as and when you add your customer or your prospect. And the same, of course, here for your suppliers. For convenience, and if the codes don't, and if the codes are not something that you need to abide by, I would strongly suggest that you just tick this box, allow the system to create the codes, and you don't have to worry about replicating or duplicating any entries as they come up. The system won't allow you to duplicate anyway, but it just makes it easier to allow the system to maintain it for you. Okay, so let's dive right into CRM. So customer relationship management. So I mean, we all know the benefits of dealing with our customers. I'm talking to you now. So, I mean, the first thing is you get an enhanced customer relationship. You get to communicate better. You get to record those communications. You get to streamline all your processes. So that's important that you get to see everything as it comes through the system. So for your salespeople and salespeople on the road or in the office, that they have a system that they can work by. So as they're recording the prospect, and as they're recording the opportunities and the lead, that they can see where that's going to end up in the system, that they can follow it through the pipeline and track and trace as that sale progresses within the system. And of course, from a management perspective, that visibility on the pipeline to see, well, why is that still sitting there? Why is that still in the meeting stage? Why hasn't that progressed? What do we need to do to help that progress? And what can we do to better communicate with the customer? You know, you can see what the processes are and how well they're working for your company. So efficiency with customer service, and I've mentioned communication because that's the important bit, communication at all times. And as we can see, that's what we're doing today. Communication is so important. Enhanced analytics and reporting. So you'll see that with the dashboards, increased productivity and efficiency, and scalability and growth. You can see where the information is going to go. You can see where data can change and data can grow. And in particular around scalability and growth, there is an area where we enable you to record custom fields. So, you know, even within Enterprise itself, when you're recording your opportunities, and you will see that in the system, I'll give you a demonstration of that later on, you have the flexibility to add information, and that's data that's important to you. So you'll see that as we go through the demonstration later. So just to give you an overview, I mean, we've already said that CRM, customer relationship management, is all about the sales process. It's all about visibility and tracking and tracing the sales process. So what do we do in terms of Enterprise for that purpose? Well, we enable you to manage your leads. Your leads are important. These are your opportunities. So whether they're for customers or whether they're for your prospects, it's important that that information is recorded. You get to record the value against that lead or opportunity. You get to add in and link in the relevant transactions. So for example, the quotes, or link in any other document within the system. So again, we're talking about visibility. So when you look at an opportunity, you get the full picture. You get to look in on the opportunity, you get to see, well, it's for this particular prospect. This is what they're looking for. This is what we sent them in terms of documents. These are the activities and communications that we've maintained with the customer. You get to manage the pipeline, and you'll see how easy it is to drag and drop opportunities through the pipeline. It's so seamless and so easy within Enterprise to do that. And ultimately then, everything in terms of activities, everything arrives at the dashboard, because that's where your analytics are. That's where your overview of the quantity, the values, how well are we doing in terms of sales, potential sales. So you get to track and trace everything. And even with activities, I mean, what are activities? We'll see that again as well. We'll go through what everything actually relates to within the system. So just a very quick overview there in terms of your lead. So your lead or opportunities, whatever you would like to call it. So very simply, it's a record of potential sales for your prospects and customers. That's what it is. You record all your activities, you progress the sale through the pipeline, you can set notifications on the follow-ups. So you can ensure that when the notifications are set, that you see them coming through the notification center, set the reminders, and you can do that also for your sales team and for other people within your team. Add quotes and link to the lead. So I've mentioned that already by attaching other documents. Link other transactions to the lead or opportunity. And you can also add attachments. So perhaps you're a service industry, service and repair, and you've got a lead in, somebody's maybe looking for a new printer and they've sent you a picture of the existing printer and they're hoping to get something closer to that model. They might send that through as a JPEG or an image file. You can also attach that to the quotation. There's another element of it here which I don't touch point on today, which is again relating to the attachment and again relating to the quote, to the opportunities, and that's the Outlook integration. Now you'll see that on the end. I have a reminder of all the little things that you can do and the functionalities that you can do. But we do have Outlook integration with the CRM, where an email comes through from a customer and you can actually add that as an opportunity directly into Enterprise. That then gets related to an ID that gets attached then to the email that goes back to the customer when you respond. When they follow up then with another query, that comes back through with the same ID, and then you can add an activity to the opportunity. And that's all the while coming through Outlook, through the integration piece. And you can also add attachments through the Outlook integration piece. So some really cool features that you could be using and maybe just need to be fully aware of. So just to give an overview of the lead workflow. So this is your opportunity. So this is where we have, as you can see here in CRM, you have the option here to add your leads. But this is where you record the information. So whether it's for an existing customer or for a new prospect, you can add the information here. Track and trace it all through the pipeline, as I've mentioned already. Set reminders and see in the notification center. Can you see it there that when a new quote is created or a new activity is created or a new opportunity has been created? So everybody has full visibility within the notification center as and when activities happen, as and when transactions are posted. So it's just making use of all that information within the system. And of course then all the while leading then to the analytics, leading to reporting on that information through the dashboard. So just in terms of your prospects, so this is where obviously I just wanted to just give you a quick overview on the quote side. So when you're sending your quote, so you're sending the quote to the customer, so it's a proposal for the service that they might require. It does not affect the customer or prospect account balance or financial accounts. It has no effect on the system. You can send it for approval to your customer, and then of course you can copy it to a sales order to commit. So I wanted to show you here where you can then link up that quote. So simply through here on the opportunity, you add a document and then you just link it directly through to the opportunity. So again, just in terms of the pipeline, we've already discussed what the pipeline will do. You get to monitor the progress of the sales. You get to filter on the different stages. So whether your stages, you can make those stages specific to your company requirements. And it's a simple drag and drop to move it through to the next stage. You can double click at any stage to see the details of the opportunity, all the while keeping in sight the end goal, which is to bring the sale through the full process. So I just want to play a little, I'm just going to play a little video here, as you can see. So this is your pipeline. And as you can see, in the pipeline, when you have an active opportunity, you can simply drag and drop as I'm doing here. And when you drag and drop it to a new stage, it asks you to fill in the current stage details. So maybe you're on the phone to the customer, you've just had that first meeting. You can see here, we're recording the information. We add it into the system, and I can see here visibility-wise, it has moved it right the way across to the next stage. I can run a filter to look at the relevant stages. I can look at myself, as you can see here on the top there, the salesperson is me, but I can switch that to look at any other salesperson, particularly if I'm in a management role and I've got visibility to everybody. I can look at it on by closing month, or I can look at it by stage view. So there's various different things you can do within the pipeline, but it's very simple to just drag and drop and move an opportunity along the pipeline and see the progression and as it moves through. And of course, you can always go back in the lead itself to see a full history, which I'll show you when we do the demonstration later, and to see a full history of when an opportunity has moved through different stages, when activities have been added, or if you were to add an attachment or to link up a document. So I've mentioned already about activities, and activities they're underestimated. They are very, very important. I mean, apart from adding activities for customers, leads and suppliers, you can set tasks for your salespeople. Use it for the facility that's there. Use it to set tasks as the sales deals progress. Make sure that those tasks are followed through, set reminders, ensure that they come through on the calendar. So the calendar they'll be able to see on their home screen. They'll also receive notifications in the notification center. And you can set an activity as recurring after it has been added. So if you need something to repeat or a certain task to repeat, you can ensure that they're also followed through. And whether that's linked to a customer or just to your salesperson, you can ensure that all of those tasks are done on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. So just in terms of activity, again, this is just a direct demonstration of when you're on your opportunity. But this is your opportunity screen. There's a section halfway down where you can see, as you can see here, we can add an activity, add an attachment. You can also add a stage, and what we looked at already about adding a document. So adding an activity, and when we go to add an activity, I can follow through here with all the activity details. I can give it an action. So this is where I'm talking about the sales tasks for your salespeople. You can set the action here to a task or a specific step that you've had defined for your organization. Or this could be a phone call or a meeting. And then, of course, who is it assigned to, the priority, details, the start and end date, whether or not it's scheduled, or perhaps it's just you want to say, I've had a phone call, I can close that activity. You can also set a reminder, which you can see down there on the bottom of the screen, and then add that and update the opportunity. So the notification center we've touched on, it's an important part of the CRM, and it's an important part of the whole entire system for Enterprise. As transactions are added, you get to see everything as it comes through the system. I'll show you that also in the demonstration later as well, because again, it's an underestimation of the system. It really is a great feature. Not only do you get notifications when transactions are created, but you can also set transactions that you want to follow. There are settings as well that you can, as a user, define as to the type of transactions that you want to see. Do you want to see only your own transactions, or do you want to see everybody's transactions? Again, that will be down to permissions and what permissions have been given to certain users within the system, whether they can only see their own transaction or whether they can see a selection of all. So moving on then, we have the dashboard. Again, just want to give you an overview. So we've said already, it's an analysis of your sales leads or your sales opportunities. So examples here, you get the number of leads generated this month, number of leads that have been simply won or lost, the value of the leads by stage, percentage of conversions, weighted pipeline value, which is basically just your expected value, which you record when you're defining your opportunity. You record an expected value, and then that's divided by a percentage of the previous stage to give you the weighted pipeline value. Another thing is that people don't realize is that the dashboard, and some of it is actually interactive, and that you can drill in to see the data. So some of it's interactive, and I'll show you that on the example on the next screen. So in terms of here on the dashboard and the demonstration, this is actually one of the interactives here. So number of leads created this month. If I was to click on that option there, it will take me into the grid to show me that lead. If that number was 5, I would see the 5 leads listed on the grid within Enterprise. So some of it's interactive, and you will find that out as you go through the screen. And you can see there leads by value by stage, if they're won or lost, the closing month stage. So there's various different KPIs that you can get and analysis for all of your CRM. Age leads, and again, you can click into those to see the relevant numbers. Inactive leads, that they've been inactive for a certain amount of time, which is generally more than a month. You can drill in to see, well, why has there been no activity? And a great way for somebody to manage the information through the dashboard, rather than having to go into the grid and maybe set filters and reduce the information down, that you could be utilizing the dashboard to give you that information. And this, as you can see, is further on down on the dashboard. It gives you overall totals. So this is the weighted pipeline value that I mentioned, which is based on the expected value of the opportunity, and divided by a percentage of the lead, the last stage lead that went through on the system. So a lot of information there and a lot of areas covered on customer relationship management. It really is a great way of recording all your sales activity, and not just about your existing customers, for new customers and existing customers. All the data is important. All the data has a benefit. There are reports available as well within the reports menu. But in terms of the opportunity, the amount of information that you get to record, and like I've mentioned with the Outlook integration, that you get to add those opportunities at the email stage as they come through. So I'm just going to bring you on to the sales, and like I said, we'll look at a demonstration later on, and I'll just briefly go through the CRM, and you can see that all happening in a live scenario. So just to give you an overall of the sales, so this is kind of leading on from CRM. So we've brought the customer, or we've brought the prospect through the CRM stage, and we've convinced or we've sold the opportunity. So whether that's the training, or whether that's Enterpryze, or whether that's to buy a new printer, whatever your business is in terms of services or repair or manufacturing. So at this point in time then, what happens within sales? So we've recorded all the master information, and we've recorded all the opportunities. And we can see here that we can manage in terms of all the transactions. So for both stock and service items, so whether you're a service industry only, or whether you're both stock, non-stock and service, you can record both types of transactions throughout the system. So that's for your sales quotes, sales orders, sales deliveries, sales invoices. I've mentioned customer payment here. We won't look at that today, but of course, ultimately the sales cycle leads through to getting paid. That's important for everybody. And then of course, sales credit note. I'm going to touch base on that today because that's an important one to understand when to use a credit note. So let's just look at here a sales quote. We've already looked at that. You know what it is. It's a proposal for your goods or services. But this is what you send your customer or your prospect. And again, just to reiterate, the customer account balance and financial accounts are not affected. So that's important to note. And you can send a quote through for approval. So when you're ready to commit, you can copy it then to a sales order and commit it to the stock or the service. So what happens with a sales order? So sales order, you can record the stock again or service. If it's a stock sales order, at this point in time, the stock will be now committed and will reduce your available stock accordingly. So what I wanted to show you here, so the screen that I have on here, just as the example, these are just a couple of items I want to show you that when you're adding a sales order, you will see this information. This is important to every end user. You will see what's committed, what's on hand, what's on order, so that's what's on order with your suppliers, and what the overall current stock levels are for that particular item. And that's important to everybody in sales. That's important to know, well, look, if I'm going to sell this item, I need to be able to see what the information is before I populate it onto an order. So that's important. Now, obviously, what we can do is, you can see down here, there's a back-to-back order between the sales and purchases. So we can obviously always ensure that if stock is running low, that we can process a back-to-back order. So accordingly, the stock is committed and will reduce the available stock accordingly. So there's a calculation in place to reduce what's called the available stock. So what's sitting on your shelf might be 10, but you might only have 8 available to sell because 2 of those have been already committed to another customer or another 2 customers, just to give you an example. And of course, sales order can be copied to a sales delivery to reduce your stock totals, or you can go directly to an invoice, whatever suits your business process. So what I'm showing you here doesn't have to follow exactly. So in terms of your business process, you've got to find what works for you and establish and follow that process. But it has to work, and it has to give you the defined and required information that you need at the end of a given day, week or month in terms of analysing that data. Back orders. So for example, I've mentioned there about, well, what if what's sitting on the shelf is not available? So you're able to give them maybe a quantity of 2 today, but you'll have to wait for the stock to come in before you can give them the next 2. So you can actually put, when you go to deliver the stock, you'll see that during a delivery, that you can change the quantity and specify how much to actually deliver from that, and effectively put the remainder of the order on back order. So the sales delivery. So we all know what a sales delivery is. You're physically delivering goods to your customer. And the great thing with Enterpryze is, like I've mentioned already, you can deliver in full or change the quantities to do a part delivery. The difference here is a sales delivery will affect your financial accounts. Now, financial accounts and accounting is something that we will talk about during the accounting session. It's a very important part of the system to understand, because what's happening in the back end is going to obviously affect figures such as your profit and loss. No matter who you are, even if you don't even have an understanding of accounting, everybody wants to know the bottom line. Everybody wants to know, how much money am I making? What's my revenue? What's my net sales? What's my gross sales? Everybody wants to know that standard information. So this is where everything coming through the financial accounts will provide that information for you. Your in-stock totals will be reduced. So that's final. Once the delivery is added, the in-stock is reduced. That's what's sitting on the shelf. So the 10 on the shelf that I've mentioned now becomes 8. You can schedule deliveries for your fan drivers on the mobile app. So again, hence just showing you the picture here. Don't forget, we have all those wonderful apps on the App Store for Android and iOS. So utilizing the delivery app, you've given that to your fan driver. You can schedule those deliveries then for that driver. So he's got the mobile app in his hand and he can see all the deliveries coming through for that particular day. He can follow through and deliver them, and then they come back through then, of course, signed and updated into Enterpryze. And ultimately then, of course, with a delivery, it gets copied to a sales invoice so he can get paid. Now, I've mentioned here about use the returns option to receive returned deliveries. So don't make the mistake that for example, you've gone out and you've delivered your goods, and the customer's decided, you've given me a faulty printer or something has happened. You use the returns option to receive the delivery, or to receive the return delivery. That's important, and match it up to the delivery. And that's important because of the effect on stock, but more importantly, the effect on the financial accounts. Again, that's ultimately something we will confirm during the stock setup as well, because that's where we come into what accounts on the financial side will be affected when you're posting your stock. So a sales invoice, I don't need to explain what a sales invoice is. We all get them. We go into a shop, we get a receipt. It's proof of purchase. It's proof of goods received. It's the most important document and is a legally required document. So it's your request for payment. Everything comes through in terms of your invoice. It records and updates the tax, your profit and loss, your balance sheet, and I've put there in brackets, which is your aged debtors. So that's what the customer owes you. I've mentioned the aged balance at the beginning of the session on the master data, and that's why it was important just to link those two up for you so that you can see that this is where the story then starts to come together. So it's your most important document. I mean, you can see there in terms of adding an invoice within Enterpryze, it's very simply done. And again, I'll refer to all of that during the demonstration. I'm also just going to mention about a sales reserve invoice, because this has been asked many a time, and in particular on support calls. So I just want to allay the fears of what it's used for. So we have a reserve invoice. For me, a reserve invoice effectively is a pro forma, or it's basically where you invoice in advance of delivery and get paid. So, for example, you might have a deal with a customer and say, well, look, yeah, we'll give you that, but in fact, we'll require payment up front. Well, then they'll say, well, I can't do that without you giving me an invoice. Well, you can within Enterpryze. Use the sales reserve invoice. So you can invoice in advance of delivery and payment. So what you can do here is when to use it. So in advance delivery and payment. What happens when I add a sales reserve invoice? Well, the committed stock increases, so a bit like your sales order. The customer balance and the sales revenue is posted. Okay, that's important. Okay, so the balance sheet and your cost of sales, so your balance sheet and your P&L is updated with the revenue. You can get paid before delivery, so we can enter in a part payment and allocate that against the reserve invoice. When the delivery is added, so it's only at this point, when you add the delivery then to the sales reserve invoice, the stock will be updated and the cost of sales on your profit and loss will be updated. I know I'm mentioning a lot of terms there, but I want to be able to just, as we go through the system, bring the information together, especially when it's mentioned again during the setup of stock as well. And of course, during the purchasing session, you will hear an awful lot about your P&L and the balance sheet. But this is important. So the 10 on the shelf, it'll commit the 2, let's say, for example, the reserve invoices for a quantity of 2. So it'll commit that and reduce the committed stock to 8 if I have 10 on the shelf. However, the 10 on the shelf, when the delivery is added against the reserve invoice, will be reduced down to 8. So the 2 is now off the shelf because we've now delivered the goods to the customer. And ultimately then we will close the reserve invoice once it's been fully paid. But just another great little function within the system that people aren't fully aware of. And you can see both the sales reserve invoices and the invoices within one list, or you can see those within a separate list within Enterpryze. And finally here with the sales credit note, we've often seen where people don't utilize this correctly. And it's important to know that, you know, a sales credit note, when should it be used? Well, it should be used to cancel or reverse a sales invoice. That's when it should be used. If it's a stock credit note, it affects your stock. So, and it also affects your tax, your profit and loss, and your balance sheet. So the bottom line figures are updated by adding a credit note. So the service option obviously does not affect stock. It's important to note with a credit note, and you know, it's for record purposes and data purposes. It's important because correctively, especially for a stock, if you invoice something incorrectly and it affects a lot of various different stock items, you've got a lot of other things happening in the background with that stock item, again, which you will see when we go to do the stock module. And that's the cost, the price that was against the value of that invoice that was used at the time. And Enterpryze uses what's called a moving average price, which means that the price is all the time moving. So when you bring in your stock and it's at a certain price today, and then you bring in more stock tomorrow, perhaps at a different price, already that quantity, let's say the quantity in total is 20, the average price might actually work out. It was €10 today, €20 tomorrow, might be €15 for the entire stock. When you invoice that then through sales, that's the cost price, the base cost price that will be used at the time of issuing the invoice. So it's important that when you enter a credit note, post that through the system, it has to be able to correct all those entries, and otherwise you will end up with a massive difference in your stock valuation. So it's important to use the correct documents at the correct times. And if you're unsure, always check with support if you're using the correct document to correct something that's been done incorrectly. So moving on here to tips and tricks. I really wanted to show you this because, again, this is underrated within the system. For every transaction that you have within Enterpryze, you've got a list of actions that you can take. Now, this one might have a little bit more than the norm, but basically what you can do is, I've mentioned it already, about following transactions. So I can tag a transaction. So for example, if there's a particular order as a manager and I want to keep an eye on that order, I can click on follow. And then in my notification center, I can see a list of any of the transactions that I'm following. And if anything changes on that transaction, so for example, maybe a salesperson goes in and reduces the price or gives an increased discount, I can track that and get a notification when that transaction has changed. So I can follow all the changes through. You can see there you can close a document. Self-service visibility is only relevant, you can see there it's currently grayed out, when you are using Customer One or the Customer Portal. If you've enabled the Customer Portal on your organization, this is where you give your customer visibility to seeing that specific transaction. And that's done through the actions. You can send, so you can send a copy of the invoice PDF to email, print it, download, add a related activity. So don't forget you can add activities to transactions. So again, you can see the importance. You're adding information, you're tracking the information and adding it through the system. You can see the relationship map. Relationship map will show me if I've got a quote to an order, to a delivery, to an invoice, it shows me all of that flow through the relationship map. Duplicate, create service calls, and obviously set transactions as recurring. I can copy to, so copy to delivery invoice or reserve invoice. I can copy from, I can select the transactions I want to copy from. And another neat trick, which you may have missed in one of the recent updates earlier in the year, is when you right click on any transactions within the grids, you also get to see these cool options. You get to edit, you get to copy to, duplicate, download. And in the case of an invoice, you get to pay. So again, just to reiterate here on the sales dashboard, you can see there you've got all the KPIs available to you on the sales dashboard, such as the revenue, such as the top sales KPI, which is just to do with the open quotes, orders, deliveries and invoices, sales by product group, and you've got a reports menu. And of course, if you've got any activities set, you'll also see them here within your sales dashboard. So this is the initial setup. And before adding transactions, you can specify various different things around default prices, gross profit, and default tax, whether that's by items and company, and the rest will follow. There's so much you can do here within settings. So just to quickly show you here, we're in settings, module settings. So I can define the default price list for estimation, which comes through on your sales app, again, the mobile app. We've got various options here for gross profit calculation, very important for tracking your margins. We will go into that in absolute detail on the stock session. And then, of course, what's very important here is default tax codes. So when you're processing transactions, do you want the default tax code to come from your stock items or from the company? And that would be your customers or your prospects. We've also got advanced sales. I know there's a lot of ground to cover here. So just to quickly show you here, we've got recurring sales, which allows you to set sales transactions to recur automatically. We've got email and billing, which allows you to email in bulk, convert and consolidate your documents, run off your customer statements all in one go. We've got resource planning. So this is where you schedule everything, schedule the orders and deliveries for the van drivers to appear on the mobile apps. So recurring sales is very simple. In actions, you simply select against your transaction, you simply select recurring, and then you choose the frequency, and then simply monitor the postings. So very simple. With email and billing, you get to select multiple documents, to print them, email them, convert them to another type. And it can be done on a single basis or it can be consolidated. But just to let me give you a quick look at that here. So in email and billing, you can select the various transaction types. You can select a transaction and select whether to email it, or you can see here whether to copy it to another document. I can select multiple documents. I can go into statements. And if you select multiple documents, a consolidate button appears as well. There's so much that you can do around the advanced sales. And here's just an overview of the resource planning. And you can see here, there's so many functions that you can do in the resource planning. This is a new feature that we've launched in the last update, where you actually still have the delivery planner, but you now have the resource planning to do everything under one HUD. It really is a great, wonderful feature. And again, you'll see here just on a demonstration how very simple. We have all these lovely new side panel views where information now comes in from right to left. You can simply drag and drop your sales order or your delivery onto the scheduler. You can specify the dates, you can specify the customer, salesperson, all the various information. You can also filter, you can also color code. There's so much you can do within the system to make it work and to make it work for your business. Same with the customer portal, just to give you a quick overview. And you can see here, you can do so much within the portal. So what you're doing here is you're empowering your customers. you're giving them the access to creating information, to viewing information. So what they get to do here, as you can see here, they get to create new service calls. They get to view all the various sales transactions. They get to create a new sales order. And under sales invoices, you select an invoice. This is your customer, and they can pay the invoices via Stripe. So really, really, really cool features within Customer One. And we've a lot more to come. We've a lot more to improve within the system and to make it even better for you as well. So there'll be a payment screen, more transactions feed. So it'll be more in line with what the current platform looks like. So very, very quickly, I just want to switch over. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I appreciate time-wise and not to run over too much on you. So just bear with me for 2 seconds. So let me just quickly log in. The reason why I just want to log in is just to show you where everything is housed. And very importantly, actually, while I'm in here, sorry, now just come back to that. If I just start this out of my way there. Yeah, perfect. So this is the platform as you know it. And I've shown you already where the settings button is up here on the top of the screen. You've obviously got the notification center here as well, but this is where you can follow, set all the notifications, see what all, click in here to your notification center, see all the transactions that are coming through, where you want to follow, what transactions you're currently following, check your settings, what transactions you want to view. So all of the above can be done through the notification center. But just to touch base again on the CRM, so everything that we've touched base on here within the CRM, I've mentioned here on the dashboard being able to drill into the information, and it will bring up that particular transaction within the grid. This is where you get to monitor all of your opportunities. So when you click into an opportunity, you get to see, as you can see here, any stages that have been updated, any activities, any attachments. You can add a new stage, you can add a document and link those in. You get to see full visibility. Look at the progress here. You can get to see how it's progressing as well. And of course, the pipeline, which we saw there also on the demonstration. Companies, so this is where all your master data resides for your customers and your prospects. So don't forget to check that out. And of course, here in the companies, you can filter on your customers and prospects within here as well. Check out about our new filters as well that you'll find in the Help Center, which I'm just going to touch base on there as well for a second. So here within the sales menu, again, just to show you where everything resides, as I've mentioned about the dashboard, about all the transaction types, the reserve invoice, the resource planner, which is here, the email and billing, the recurring transactions, the reports, activities. There is so much functionality. And what I want to really just to confirm for you here as well, we have a wonderful feature here with help.enterpryze.com, which, by the way, you can access directly within Enterprise. If you come to the home screen, you can get to the help screen from here. And if you go to the Help Center, help.enterprise.com, type in your search, or what I've done here is everything is stored by module. So you can quickly access the information, find out what it is that you need to know. So I can click down in here to sales, I can look at the sales information, I can get more information on the processes within sales, I can look at recurring transactions, I can go to the companies, how to add a customer, activities, prospects. So all of the information that you require, check out help.enterprise.com. And in addition to that, the Enterprise YouTube channel. There's a lot of information there, again, around your CRM, around the sales. So you will find playlists and information just on the main home screen for Enterprise. So anything that you need to help you through on the day-to-day. So just to come back to the next module. So I just wanted to give you what we'll do on the next module. So there'll be a recap, obviously, on today. And we'll have services and an overview of the services and where services can be used for your business. Because a lot of people think services, oh, okay, I'm less in the service industry, it's not pointing me using it. It can be used for so much more. Recording tasks, recording complaints, recording repairs, recording service, recording and support queries as they come in, whether that's internal or external. So much more that you can do. Adding service calls, managing projects using service calls. So there's a new one for you. And of course, don't forget the resource planner, and that's where that's going to be key to that. Setting up Enterprise for the services and what that contains. And of course, the customer portal. So we'll go through that much more within the services module. So lots of key takeaways. And again, this is all going to be on the download. So lots of key takeaways today. And there's a lot of things I've mentioned here that we didn't get to cover, like such as the Outlook integration. But there's so much within the system, and I hope you get to utilize it a bit more. But thank you all so much for taking the time out and for joining us here today on session 1 of the Enterprise University with Sales and CRM. But thank you so much for joining me, and look forward to seeing you in the next session. Take care.